Across the board, nobody cares about your crowd size. Good morning. Happy Monday. It's great to be here on KCMO 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We are back to crowd size debates. That's what we're back to. I don't like it. I don't care about it. Crowd sizes do not determine who wins elections. It just determines who has a passionate base. But it doesn't swing undecideds in your direction. It just doesn't do it. But now we're sitting here having to worry about who likes whose crowds and the sizes of those said crowds. And I don't understand it because I'm telling you right now, there is so much on the line in this election when we talk about the future of the country, right? I mean, I don't need to tell you that as we get this week started. This is not news to you. If you're tuned in right now as we kick off this week with about, 11 weeks to go until November 5. But it just feels to me like Donald Trump is continuing to be off of his game. And when it comes to whether or not that's going to help him in November, the answer is it's not. And you might say, hey, focus on Kamala's record. Focus on the border czar. Focus on this. I agree. I need the guy who's running for the White House to do that, too. That's what I need, John Anthony.
He's kind of easily distracted. You remember the Chris Farley character on Saturday Night Live who would go up to celebrities and go, remember the time that was great. And all you have to do to go to Trump's go, hey, remember your inauguration speech crowd? That was great. I mean, clear back then.
I know.
This started, right?
He is very easily distracted. I will say that much.
Like it's TV ratings.
Yes.
I think.
Bingo. And that's what we've got a lot of over the weekend where Trump was posting on his social media about how Kamala Harris's team may have had AI-generated photos from her tarmac rally in Wisconsin last week. Now, it very much does look AI-generated. There's no doubt about it. You can see suggestions showing it is AI-generated. But in the end, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself,
nobody cares.
No one cares. No one cares. Kamala Harris's team is trolling Donald Trump with these rally photos. They have gotten him to ignore Kamala Harris's radicalism, scandals, and instead they got him focusing on crowd sizes, which does nothing but make him look petty and allows them to continue to avoid their own record. They are playing him like a fiddle, and he's taking the bait. Now, you might say, that's completely unreasonable. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. Not in this case. No, not in this case. Not now. The media has been completely derelict in its duty. In the worst display of propaganda I have ever seen. I mean, this is worse than anything with Obama, anything with Hillary, anything with Biden. They are letting Kamala Harris get away with malpractice against the American voters by not demanding she do any kind of media whatsoever. It's the worst display of journalistic propaganda in my lifetime. It is Orwellian. Even George Orwell is like, whoa, this is something. All that needs to be focused on is how Kamala Harris was the VP and is the VP right now under Joe Biden. She is getting away with running a campaign as if she hasn't had any political power over the last 3.5 years and has had nothing to do with Joe Biden. And nobody cares about these photos. Nobody cares about AI-generated rally photos. And frankly, it looks petty and ridiculous in the light of the real problems that this country's facing. I feel the way I do because the direction of the country is at stake. We can sit here and complain about, but the media, but Democrats, but this, but that. None of it matters. All that's baked into the cake. This is like the Miracle on Ice, 1980. You have got to play the perfect game, knowing full well what you're up against in the wake of the Olympics ending this weekend. That's what has to happen. And we're not getting that perfect game. We're not getting that perfect blueprint right now. Now, it's too bad because on the flip side, J.D. Vance continues to shine he continues to be an absolute star. J.D. Vance is getting better every single day, and it's fantastic to see. I mean, this guy is really coming into his own. He's doing sit-down interviews with media, which, by the way, Harris and Walz are not doing. And he is just continuing to impress me more and more when I watch J.D. Vance. And it's a lot of, it's fun. It's just enjoyable because this guy has the smarts to go up against the media in a national stage in a different way from Donald Trump.
And on the question of when he left the National Guard, he filed his election paperwork February 10th, 2005. That was a month before the National Guard even announced that it was possible that they would deploy to Iraq, and it ended up being 2 months. He retired 2 months before they actually got the paperwork.
But on CNN last night, Dana, one of the people who was actually in charge of him said they knew they were going to deploy to Iraq in February of 2004, fall of 2004. So he knew he was going to Iraq. He decided to quit, to retire, whatever word you want to use.
Retire.
Because he wanted to run for Congress. He lied about that. He said that when he decided to retire, he did not know that he was going to Iraq. That is another untruth, as even his senior military officer said. So again, I'm not criticizing the service. I'm criticizing the dishonesty. Dishonesty spoken in favor and for the purpose of political benefit. And I think that the most important thing here, Dana, is it goes to Kamala Harris's judgment. Tim Walz is ultimately going to be the vice president. Kamala Harris is in great health. I'm sure she's going to be president if she wins for 4 or maybe even 8 years. Why did Kamala Harris choose a person who has lied about their military service? I think that is a serious lapse in judgment. And I don't want to hear from a campaign spokesperson of Kamala Harris. I want to hear Kamala Harris herself address what I just said.
You know, I've seen a lot of statements from veterans, including those you served with, saying it's just untoward to be criticizing somebody who served for 24 years.
Dana, I'm not interested in the ad hominem. I've heard from a lot of veterans groups who criticize Tim Walz. The question is, he said he served in war, and he didn't. That is a dishonesty. I couldn't care less what one or the other person says about it. I care about what the truth is. The truth is that Tim Walz didn't tell the truth. And importantly, Dana, this is about Kamala Harris's judgment. And I think that when you ask, why has Kamala Harris allowed the border to be wide open? Why has Kamala Harris supported policies that have promoted the increase in inflation? I think it goes to the heart of her judgment, and I think that that's what we should be talking about.
That is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful from J.D. Vance. That is a master class from J.D. Vance, who has gotten astronomically better over the last 4 weeks with CNN's Dana Bash, tying back the Tim Walz stolen valor allegations to really Kamala Harris and her decision-making. You know, Tim Walz's military record is not going to make or break the campaign. You have to tie it back to something. You have to tie it back to the person at the top of the ticket. And he said this goes back to Kamala Harris's judgment, her judgment as borders are, her judgment on the economy, her judgment on deciding to cover up Joe Biden's mental abilities that were clearly collapsing over the last few months. You tie it back to her, and he did it in a relatively jovial way on CNN, but beautifully displayed. So you've got two things going on right now. You have Trump flailing and falling for, I believe, Kamala Harris's campaign's tricks, and you've got J.D. Vance shining right now, which in a perfect world, it actually would be the opposite, but here we are, at least on Monday, August 12th, 913-408-7957. We'll get to you here coming up on the backside as we roll through the 6 o'clock hour on KCMO. At 6:35, we're going to go to St. Louis, where a Ferguson police officer is fighting for his life on the 10-year anniversary of the Michael Brown situation. So that's all coming up in a busy first hour on KCMO 95.7 FM. There's too much on the line to not just call it like it is. There's too much on the line to say, well, I need to make my guy or my people feel good. And remember this when you go on social media. You know, you may watch things on YouTube. There are a lot of people with national voices who will tell you more so maybe what you want to hear, what makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. And part of that is because they like being, as you know, part of the inner circle. They like being with the in crowd. That's what they like. So they will sugarcoat things. They will gaslight, and they will do whatever it takes to keep themselves as part of the right inner circles that benefit them. We don't do that here on KCMO. We got this show, we're talking to you here in Kansas City. We're having conversations about what's happening locally, both sides of our state line, nationally. We weave it all together here and hope you find it mildly entertaining, but that's what we do. But there's no trips to Mar-a-Lago. There's no big golf tournament invites in Washington, D.C. There's no worry about being on the outs of anybody or anything. It's just you. It's us. And we need the best, the most laser-focused Donald Trump we've ever gotten over the next 11 weeks. Because if not, I'm not sure the country can sustain Kamala Harris when it comes to border policy, when it comes to economic policy, when it comes to foreign policy. So when I say all this, it comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of care, right? It's like if you have a friend, a family member who struggles with some kind of addiction, you can whistle past the graveyard and slap them on the back and pretend everything's okay, but you're not really doing them a favor. You're actually hurting them, and you're hurting yourself in the process.
You mentioned of love and care, and of course, of concern.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly right. Paul's in Kansas City. He's first up. Paul, you're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete, you're exactly right. Look, the Democrats have shortened the campaign season. They did a political makeover on Harris, made her out to be a Johnson County Democrat. Then they put an iron dome so the media can't get to her. And look, the election's not 5 November. Pennsylvania starts 16 September. Wisconsin's got drop boxes out already, early voting in Missouri. And look, Pete, if Trump doesn't get the ball game, I'm afraid on January 20th, 2025, 80 million Americans will be behind the Iron Curtain of socialism. He's got to get in the ball game.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it, man. 913-408-7957. John's in Gardner. You're next up. What's up, John?
Hey, morning, Pete. Happy Monday. And I want to respectfully disagree with you. I think crowd sizes are hugely important. I mean, I saw the groundswell when Obama first started campaigning. You knew it was over. It's just the enthusiasm was there. It was organic. It was real. And if the crowd sizes are irrelevant, then why is the Harris campaign even bothering with the AI at all? It's like manufactured enthusiasm, and I find it telling. They're having to mask off, parts of empty stadiums and so forth, and it's kind of like batting back at the media. It's like, hey, she's not that popular. Hey, she's really not that popular. If Trump was doing this, they'd be blowing the whistles all over the place.
Well, that is true, John. There's no doubt about it, that if Trump was doing AI, thanks, man, if Trump was doing AI-generated, crowd photos, they would certainly be bringing that up. I don't deny that. But I play this game knowing how the media is going to respond, how the media is going to act. That's just how I prefer to play the game, because I know I'm not going to change it. And Trump should know he's not going to change them. But instead of saying, hey, you know why she should be wildly unpopular? Look at this issue, that issue, this issue, that issue. I mean, there are a plethora of issues you can go down the list with Kamala Harris on. I mean, there's no shortage of content on that front. Here's why she should be wildly unpopular. These are the things that she has done or not done during her time in office. And that's how you end up actually winning this thing. Why are they doing the AI-generated photos? I don't know. Part of me wonders if they set this whole thing up to, have Trump talk about crowd sizes, which he likes to do. I wonder if they're playing a little 3D chess and he fell for the trap.
He might have, and if he wants to play 4D chess, say, oh, you want me to talk about crowd sizes? How about the lineup at the border this morning?
Yeah, right? There you go.
Flip it around, be Reagan, man.
Flip it around.
Not quite there.
Yes.
If ever.
Let's talk about the crowd sizes that matter in this country. Like the 10 million people have crossed the freaking border the last 3.5 years. How about that for a crowd? And by the way, if they had their druthers, we know who they'd be voting for president. Turn that baby right around on them. Ken in Kansas City, what's up, Big Ken?
Yeah, hey, how you doing, Pete?
I'm doing well.
That's good. Hey, yeah, so I don't know. I kind of have a working theory on Trump. I think he's a lot smarter than what he's got some kind of a strategy. And I don't know, there was a movie, it's got Morgan Freeman in it. It was a magic movie. And there's a line where he says, when they tell you the magic's over here, the real magic's happening somewhere else. So if President Trump were to start at this point in the game, knowing what kind of short memories we seem to have lately, that just gives the Harris campaign time and her, pungent media that's all supporting her, time to counter that, to prepare it, to give all the spin doctors all the sufficient time to thwart that. As long as he's not playing his hand, then they're just going to go with whatever he's doing. So if he's talking about crowd sizes, they're going to talk about crowd sizes.
Yeah, but let me ask you, Ken, what is Trump's best hand? His strongest hand to me is not him, because frankly, his policies are much more popular than he is personally with a bulk of the American people. The strongest hand Trump has is that he's been in office and his policies worked, right? That's his best hand. So why not play your best hand when your best hand is clearly your policies? It's not you. It's not your crowd sizes. It's not anything but your policies that worked for the American people. That's his best hand.
Well, absolutely, that's his best hand. But we're talking about playing his best hand. He already knows what that is. But if he starts going after Harris's record, we don't even know fully we know in general what her policy positions are. But she hasn't had any interviews. She hasn't had, there hasn't been a debate. And I think once we get closer to election time, that's when you're going to start seeing him doing some direct comparisons with his policies versus hers. If he does that now, then that just gives the Harris campaign the advantage of time to have more time to prepare to combat that. They don't know specifically what he's going to say either. So right now they're just doing a tit for tat. He talks about crowd size, they come back with crowd size.
Here's the problem I have with that, Ken, and I'm up against it. I appreciate it, man. The problem with that strategy is what Paul just said earlier in the segment. You will have early voting starting in some of these key swing states in a month. The time is now. The time is not October 1, the time is now. Nobody really knows Kamala Harris. She is an unknown for a large bulk of the American electorate. You need to hammer home what she's all about, what her policy positions have been, and how yours have worked. That's it. Is that right? 913-408-7957 on a Monday morning on KCMO. We've got you lined up as we do each and every morning. Wes in Gladstone did meet Michael Brown. Good morning, Wes.
Yeah, Pete, I wanted to talk about Trump, but yeah, I'm over there in North County, which, don't kid yourself, there's a lot of crap holes over there, okay? I'm assessing tornado damage from a storm there in 2013. I pull up to this house. There's two black guys out working on I think it was a Buick 442, right? An old classic muscle car. And the first thing I think when I see one of them is, who's he playing left tackle for? And it was Michael Brown. And it was a weird deal because he was a nice kid. He even held my ladder as I got into the attic access out on the carport. Okay, it wasn't until the next year, and this is weird, man. Don't freak out on me. I'm taking a shower, and all of a sudden it hits me. That was Michael Brown. The guy was huge, man. I mean, just
wow. So obviously you didn't. He didn't introduce himself as Michael. You didn't know who he was when you met him. But then, obviously, when he became a nationally known name a year later in 2014, you realized that was him.
Yeah, I shook his hand, and his hand was 2 times even bigger than mine. He was just a big kid. He was a big kid. You could just tell, man. But more importantly, we're talking about Ferguson. Ferguson's a nice town. There were white people living next to black people across the street from each other, great homes, well-kept, very nice mature trees, nice, a nice town, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you go a couple towns east of there, and it's a whole different ballgame, man.
Yeah.
There are areas of North County that are not good, and I'll just leave it at that, okay?
Yeah.
Now, as far as Trump goes, you're absolutely right. He's screwing the pooch. And when Victor David Hansen said that the other day when I was watching a podcast, that's when it really got to me, Pete.
Where did I love Victor Davis Hansen. Where did he say that?
He was being interviewed by some guy, and I saw it on YouTube. It was about a 15-minute podcast or whatever it was, but he said exactly what you've been saying, Pete. He's screwing the pooch. Stop the personal attacks on her. Don't call her stupid. Don't question if she's black. She's making his ads for him. Whenever she says, the first day as president, I'm going to lower food prices, it's easy. The question is, why don't you do it now?
Yep.
I mean, it's as simple as that. But let's look at Trump, okay? They've tried to bankrupt him. They've tried to put him in jail. And now he's been almost killed.
Yeah.
You'd be pissed off too, man.
Yo, listen, I totally, all those things can be true at the same time, though, right? He can feel like he has gotten absolutely railroaded, screwed. The man almost lost his life a month ago tomorrow. Nobody seems to remember or care about it. That is absolutely true. But in the end,
but here's
he's got to stick to his guns and you know what? Try to do what he needs to do for the country to win on November 5, and he's not doing it right now.
You just hit it. He's got to put that personal stuff away, as it'd be hard to do, but you got to remember, when your opponent is drowning, you don't throw him a life jacket, you throw him an anvil. And every time she opens her mouth, she's drowning, man. And Pete's and he's got to put away the personal stuff, man. I mean, he's had it rough, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But he's got to do it for the country and not himself.
Thank you.
Very good show today, man.
Appreciate it, Wes. Thanks so much. 913-408-7957. A lot going on this morning here on KCMO Talk Radio. Today, we've got to watch what's going on at the Jackson County Legislature. If you are a Jackson County resident, even if you're not, though, this is important stuff for the entire region. The county legislature is meeting for the first time since the decision last week by the Missouri State Tax Commission to require Jackson County to roll back every assessment over 15% to the 15% threshold. Frank White says he's going to challenge that, right? That was the big news that came down last week. Well, on Friday, our buddy Nick Haynes at Kansas City PBS was on the show. And if you missed that, it's up on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Nick Haynes was on the show, and he broke some news about what's planned today for the Jackson County legislative meeting.
The Jackson County Executive Frank White says he's going to appeal. This is, a political move against me, and it always seems to be, it's always somebody who's out to get him. Mm-hmm. It's never that he's done anything wrong. And I know on Monday, the Jackson County legislature is going to try to call a vote to block any appeal from Jackson County Executive. So he can't appeal. Whether they have the votes or not, enough, because that would require 6 votes to overcome a veto from the executive. We will see, but that will happen on Monday.
So that was Nick Haynes on Friday. And last night I talked to some folks on the legislature, and they say, yes, they are going to try to pass a resolution today prohibiting the county attorneys from defying the Missouri State Tax Commission order. And also, they are going to try to pass an ordinance to put a change to the county charter that will make the assessor an elected position. In many counties in Missouri and elsewhere, the assessor is an elected position. It's not in Jackson County. That's one of the reasons Gail McCann Beatty has suffered absolutely zero consequences for her handling of this assessor's office. Frank White appoints her. Frank White isn't bothered by any of this. He doesn't seem to much care about any of this. So he has chosen to leave his hand-picked assessor, Gail McCann Beatty, in that position. This would make it so now in Jackson County you would vote on your county assessor, which is how many counties choose to do it. and seems like a much better way to hold your county assessors accountable for what is happening on this issue in places like Jackson County. So these two things we'll watch today on KCMO. We'll get reaction to it tomorrow morning, depending on how this plays out. But that's the thing that in Jackson County you want to be watching today. But it really does matter for the entire metro, because this story, this assessment story, has been, frankly, I think will go down as the biggest story of the year. I could see it. As Mark noted, I forgot about this early in the season. I guess it was, the first week of the season that the Wokesters showed up to Royals. Was it opening day or was it day 2 of the season, Mark?
I think it was opening day because people were making fun of them for spending so much money when they're trying to
yes.
get the millionaire.
That's right. Beat back the billionaires. They rolled out the no. What did their banners say? Do you remember? Like no new stadium taxes or something. Vote no.
Yeah, it was something big right behind home plate.
Yes.
Didn't get it on TV, just social media.
Yes. That was leading up to the April 2nd vote. So now they may be coming for him again. Well, this is a nice offer by the Royals. It's a good way to make a buck. I like it from a business perspective, but you got to be careful these days. The Royals are offering a baby gender reveal ticket package for Sunday, August 25th against the Phillies. The package is priced at $500. And for $500, you get 4 lower level tickets, 1 parking pass, 1 blue or pink reveal fireworks, highlight on Crown Vision in between an inning, and a professional photo of your reveal. That's actually not a bad deal. I mean, think about how many people spend hundreds of dollars on balloons to just release them into the air in their own backyard. You get to go catch a baseball game. You get the parking pass. You get a pink or blue reveal fireworks. You get to be seen on the Crown Vision, and you get a professional photo. It's actually not a bad bang for your buck when you think about it. But something tells me that some people are going to have a problem with this. In the world of, kids should be able to pick their own gender at 5 years old, I'm not sure some people are going to be digging this idea of the Royals having their own gender reveal package. Who would have thought you'd be saying that 5 years ago? I mean, it's harmless enough to me. I think it's a nice way to turn a quick little profit for a Sunday afternoon game. And if you're a diehard fan, it's a great way to go out there and, catch a baseball game. And, oh, by the way, I'm having a kid, and it's going to be a boy or it's going to be a girl. But something tells me there will be some social media blowback. I saw it on Fox 4 last night. So just something to watch as the week gets started. Some people are going to be freaking out over this. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, in the meantime, speaking of things I saw on social media, I just want to address this. There's a Facebook group. Somebody sent me a screenshot of this. There's a Facebook group called KC Trump Parades. And they posted this on their account over the weekend about this show. It says here, Johnson County, as well as Kansas City, Missouri, needs young and fast on their feet political pundits to take on the woke regional media. They write here, MAGA has 2 to 3 times or more grassroots, but we have no cutting edge, no holds bar young political pundits. Yes, there are many who are stepping out and working to do so, all with limited budgets on part-time bases. We have Pete Mundo on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. He's a great guy, but he holds back. Not judging. Maybe his employers are holding him back. Point is, there are no voices leading the region that are 50 and under demographics, by and large, and are looking for insight on local things. First off, no one here has ever told me what to say about anything in 6.5 years. No one has ever said, don't say this. No one has ever said, don't say that. No one has ever said, say this, say that. In 6.5 years, no one's ever told me what exactly to say or not say on this show, to be very clear. I'm not sure what it is I hold back on, but here's the thing. This poster saying MAGA has 2 to 3 times or more grassroots in the Kansas City region is just inaccurate. It doesn't matter what may be happening when it comes to grassroots. All that matters is what's happening at the polls. And MAGA candidates are getting their butts smoked in the region. Find me one MAGA candidate, like someone who's truly latched on to MAGA that's won in the Kansas City area. Like not just a primary, like one a general. That person doesn't exist. I mean, we're doing all we can here for good candidates. I don't view people as like MAGA, non-MAGA. Like I don't perceive people that way. I don't judge people that way. I just look at them for who they are. And I say, do they want to help the area? Do they want to help the region? Can they be a voice of good for the Kansas City area? And that's how I view it. I don't view it as allegiance to a movement. I don't view it as allegiance to a specific person, because so much of what's happening in local politics is irrelevant from what's happening nationally. So I don't know who this poster is, but I got it screenshotted to me over the weekend. And I thought to myself, with all due respect, the person's clueless, because we're sitting here as basically the only voice pushing back on most regional media narratives and doing it with, by the way, facts. And at no point are we holding back anything. I mean, if you think I'm holding back, it may just be because you don't like something I say, but that's not me holding back. That's just you disagreeing with my opinion. And that's fine. Like, that's totally fine. But trust me, no one here is holding back on anything. And no one has asked us to hold back on anything either. I will add that. But it just reeks of boomerism as well as what it reeks of behind a nameless, faceless Facebook page, which unfortunately there's far too much of these days. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is 17 minutes away. Ken Coleman just after 8 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio. In the meantime, the best parody I heard over the weekend that you will not want to miss. It's next on KCMO 95.7 FM. One thing you got to laugh at, the Harris campaign has loved rolling out these incredibly phony and fake phone calls that they then post on social media. It was 3 weeks ago now that they post the photo of Kamala Harris getting the phone call from Barack and Michelle Obama, giving her their endorsement and their support. And she just happened to be walking down the hallway with a microphone attached to her when Barack called. I mean, it's amazing how that works, right? Totally organic, so natural. Oh, my goodness. Oh, it was so beautiful to see, wasn't it, John?
Oh, Kamala never not working.
And then you had the call last week where they announced Tim Walz as the VP pick, which also, they just each happen to be sitting in a room with microphones on and professional videographers standing right in front of them when she calls up Tim Walz and offers him the VP job. I mean, it's, gosh, so natural, so organic, so fake, like everything else about this Kamala Harris campaign. So this was done on YouTube by an account and a guy named Mr. Reagan. And he did a parody of the Tim Walz Kamala Harris phone call where she asks him to be his VP choice. And, I see a lot of parodies. I watch a lot of content, obviously. And this is one of the all-timers.
Hi, this is Tim.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Listen, you weren't my first choice. To be honest, you weren't even in my top 10. But no one else wants to run as my VP because they all know I'm going to lose. You are the only one who is willing to be my running mate.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically career suicide. But I did some dumb shit a few years back, and now I'm totally controlled by the deep state. And so they told me either I become your running mate or I get Epstein in a New York prison.
Now, the fact that we're both radical communists is a slight problem, but I got some instructions from Big Daddy Barack. Basically, we're going to pretend that you're a normal American white guy. There's a bunch of things you did that we got to run away from here. You passed a law requiring tampons in the boys' bathroom in schools. You basically cheered on the George Floyd rioters who burned down your cities. You implemented a snitch hotline during COVID. And Tim, you signed a law that allows the state to take custody of children if their parents refuse to let them transition. I mean, what the f***, Tim? We got a lot of cleanup to do here. But listen, we already got the mainstream media gaslighting America into thinking that you're super normal.
This is America's dad, America's football coach, and the teacher that's cool enough without trying to be cool.
A lot of people have noticed this sort of down-to-earth, likable quality to him.
He's very moderate in Congress.
A moderate Democrat, a centrist, but a more centrist.
Kind of a centrist Midwesterner in persona.
That's pretty funny because I'm weird as f***.
Americans are dumb, Tim. They'll believe anything we tell them.
They are so dumb, right?
They think I'm black. Okay, so here's the plan. In order to hide your own weirdness, we want you to accuse Trump and J.D. Vance of being weird. Just say it over and over again.
Weird. And then they start being weird. They're weird. Donald Trump's weirdness. Very weird. It's just too weird. Weird. Okay, so how far left are we admitting to being here? Like, are we openly woke?
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke.
Yeah. No. We're flip-flopping on everything right now. We want to keep the voters confused. You know when your GPS suddenly starts rerouting inexplicably and you have no idea where you're going and you're afraid your GPS might just drive you off a cliff? We're exactly like that.
What do we say if reporters ask us about policy stuff?
Oh, we're not taking questions from reporters, Tim. We're not prepared for that. But if you do find yourself in a tricky spot with a reporter, just cackle.
Cackle.
Yeah, cackle.
You're considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage. But
yeah. And is that a socialist or progressive perspective?
No. What do you want to know?
Wow, that's horrifying.
Exactly. It's horrifying, but distracting. Okay, so Tim, tell me, your radical left political views, are those real?
Oh, no, of course not. No, honestly, I will have whatever political views you pay me to have.
I love it, Tim. You're like the white male version of me.
You're right. No one voted for me either. Hey, Kamala, let's see what can be unburdened by what has been.
There you
All right,
go.
buddy. I'll see you soon.
All
Take
right,
care.
buddy. See you soon. Take care. Mr. Reagan on YouTube with that outstanding parody of a phone call between Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as she asks him to be his VP pick last week. And it has not turned out to be a good selection for her. It hasn't. Whether it's his military track record and what he said or did not say, what's true, what's not true about Tim Walz and how he billed himself as this war hero, and it turns out he was anything but. To me, that's secondary to a guy who is radically progressive. And the parody does an outstanding job, highlighting a lot of that. Talking about, his stances on COVID, how he had a snitch hotline during COVID, how he didn't do enough during the George Floyd riots in his city of Minneapolis. And the list goes on and on from there. And it is also true the media is doing this great job just trying to make him, middle-of-the-road, centrist guy from Minnesota, John. Coach.
I'm surprised they didn't mention he was cuddly.
Yeah.
Right? That was a day or two that was a couple of news cycles. He was cuddly.
Yes. It's so transparent what's going on here. They're treating him like he's freaking Gene Hackman from Hoosiers, by the way. They're like, it's just old Coach. Did you see at the recent rally they had signs you could pick up for Tim that say Coach on it in red, white, and blue? He's just Coach. Oh, my goodness. But this is where Trump's got to hone in on this stuff, man. Instead, all I see from Trump over the weekend is him complaining about Kamala Harris AI-generated crowd sizes in Wisconsin from last week. That's all I'm saying. It's like, man, this guy's giving you a treasure trove of things to hit him on and then tie it back to Kamala Harris, right? And how she is not interested in being middle of the road. At least 4 years ago, Joe Biden had basically a 40-year history of being somewhat moderate that he could run on and he could sell you on. There's nothing that Kamala Harris can sell you on as a moderate. You heard it in that cackle of an interview there towards the end of the parody hit with 60 Minutes, I believe it was. And she was voted the most liberal senator in the United States Senate late in her tenure, more liberal than Bernie Sanders. Then, of course, her 4 years as VP for the most progressive administration in American history. And there's nothing moderate about her. There's nothing moderate about Tim Walz. Tim Walz is MSNBC's vision of, a Midwestern white dude, but he's not at all a moderate guy. They're just going to try to pitch him as a moderate guy. So now it's on President Trump to highlight that, to focus and really hone in on that. And he's not showing me, at least on what I've seen the last couple of weeks, that he's really interested in doing it. And the polling is not trending in his direction, unfortunately, these last couple of weeks. And you can't be somebody who 3 weeks ago was like, oh, man, look at these polls. Trump's on his way to beating Joe Biden. Life is good. And now being like, fake polls. Nope. They're all fake.
Fake news.
You can't have it both ways. You either believe the polling trend, and I don't take one poll, I look at them all. You either believe the trends that you see across polls or you don't, but you can't pick and choose when you like them based on whether or not they're going in your direction. The reality is, things have not been trending in Trump's direction. They have been trending heavily in Kamala Harris's direction. And he's got to flip the narrative, and he's got to do it soon. And he's got to do it very fast as well. 913-408-7957. We have got the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend right around the corner. And then we've got Ken Coleman, Ramsey personality. We've got a big week ahead. Unemployment numbers going to be coming out. Of course, the markets had a jittery week last week, but there's still a lot to come in the next 11 weeks. I think we're going to see a roller coaster of a 3-month stretch here for the markets. So we'll talk to Ken Coleman about that, where things go from here, and much more on 95.7 FM KCMO. And as always, we are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app.